Okay, forgot to change my view in the one of these days I get it all right. Speaker view, there we go. Maybe I ought to get some music to play at the beginning too. Something to give people a little something to listen to instead of my voice in the beginning. Okay. All right, there we go. And I'm going to share that. Share. Loading. Isn't that nice? Come on now. Okay, it should be up on my Facebook page now, Scotty, if you want to share it around on Facebook. And let me do this. Now, why isn't it playing on? Is it playing on Facebook? Did they change something else now?
Well, I don't want to take y'all speaker view, but I want to tell you that what it does, it just, for some reason, last week and this week, it just applied the link. It doesn't play live. It just applies the link.
Okay, glad you told me that. So I'll have to work on why it's doing that. And all you people listening to our little technical discussion, thank you very much for listening. And here we go. Yes, this is Pesach Sherbo, Torah for the Nations, the B'nai Noach connection with Israel. We're coming directly from Sfat, Israel live, where it is the 7th of January, 3 o'clock in the morning, 2021. In the USA, New York time, it's still the 6th of January, 2021. And it's probably 10 o'clock. 8 o'clock there. 8 o'clock. Yeah, I'll get it straight. Thank you for joining us. And we have our co-host here is Scotty Helton. And we have the Tennesseans here. We have Thomas is here. Gloria is here. And Moella. Terry is recovering from what do they call it? A dental surgery or something. Yeah. Yeah. How y'all doing? I know it's a crazy day. There's a day in America. They're certifying the Electoral College and all kinds of stuff going on there. I'm sorry, very sorry to read the news that I'm reading about, yeah. Okay, if you have any comments you want to make on Facebook, you can put them on there wherever you're looking at it, or you can on the YouTube channel. We're there, and you can get in the chat room on the YouTube channel. Just click on the thing on Facebook. It'll take you to the YouTube channel. Click on it. And this we're broadcasting on Noahide World Center YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe to it, there should be a little button somewhere to subscribe. And if you're looking on it, yeah, just subscribe. Anytime you subscribe to both channels, Torah for the Nations and Noahide World Center YouTube channel, both of them. Appreciate if you would subscribe. Okay, well, things are going along, chugging right along here in Israel. Everybody's getting their vaccines, and I think Israel has the highest vaccination rate per capita in the whole world right now. And we're getting that done, and we are in a total lockdown. even prayer services are limited to 5 indoors and 10 outdoors. They've reduced that. Hello, Nina. Shalom, shalom. Yeah, and everything's closed. I mean, everything's closed. It's just crazy. And they're closing the supermarkets and everything closes at 7 o'clock at night, which for me, that's no big deal because I do this. I go out in the mornings. I like to go around at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. There's not a lot of people there, and do my grocery shopping. So, listen, a lot of people, there's a lot of channels out there doing teachings on specific things, like teachings from certain books, the weekly parashah and all that. And so we try to handle questions that people ask, kind of an open forum. Anybody that wants to ask questions, feel free to do that. You can type it in on the chat on YouTube. You can type it in on Facebook. The best place to type it in on Facebook would be on B'nai Noach Connection with Israel, because I think Scotty's monitoring that one. I don't know if all the messages show up everywhere. Oh, yeah, I haven't turned my camera on yet. Sorry. Thank you for somebody remind me, Thomas. There we go. I'm sitting here looking at my picture and looking at everything. Okay. One of these days I'll get it all right and perfect, but you know what? We never get there, do we? And Hashem, he's good about that. He says, give me some progress every day, and don't need perfection from you, because it's really hard to get perfection, but at least make some progress every day in who you are and what you do, and being a good person. Scotty put a post up today. It was about kindness, just being kind to one another. Don't be religious. Don't be anything but kind to one another. That's the way to be righteous before God. Just be kind to one another. Of course, you need to know who he is, and he appreciates that. That's one of the things he wants us to do. But then we have to be kind to mankind. That what is set up for us to do. How you doing, Sally? Good to see you on YouTube there. What's good to do is to remember that there's 2 directions God wants us to work in. One of them is between our relationship with him and following what he puts in our path and things to do. And the other thing is what we do between human beings. So I know I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. If you look at the 10 Commandments, they're on 2 different sides of the tablet. One side has everything to do with the relationship with God. 1, 2, 3, 4, all relationship with God. 5 is honor your mother and father, which is the transition from honoring God to honoring our parents, which transitions us to the other 5 on the other side, which are all about what not to do to human beings. And I got a very interesting question this week. A lady said she's been studying the Noahide stuff for 3, 4, 5 years. I don't remember exactly. And she says there seems to be some conflicting ideas. And then there's this book and that book. What books do I recommend? And, she says, how do I know if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do? Well, it's easy enough without ever really truly looking at the 10 Commandments, or even the 7 categories of commandments that all mankind have to follow, because you just have to know who God is, and you just have to be kind to every other person. You don't get angry at them. You don't get jealous at them. What it is you do not do to others what you don't want done to you. It's real easy. That includes yelling, making smart comments, humiliating. If you're just kind to people, you're done. You got it. Everybody seems to worry so much about whether I should light a Shabbos candle or whether I should celebrate this holiday or that holiday. When God set this up, there weren't any holidays, by the way. When God set this up, he just set up a plan for us to interact with each other in a proper way. And he set us up to interact with him in a proper way. So, Zechia, how you doing? Zechia on YouTube. Good to see you. Think about this a minute. God's telling us, and he doesn't mention religion. He doesn't mention anything. Everything that God tells us is about relationships. Relationships between you and him. And, okay, Gloria. The relationship between you and him, and relationship between you and everybody else in the world. And he starts out with our parents because it's the first relationship we have in life. And it says we have to honor them. Okay, we honor them. But then it goes on to all the other things. And the Noahide, the 7 universal laws are there's basically don'ts there, how not to treat people. Hi, God. Yeah, see you, Gloria. See you there, YouTube. So when you wake up in the morning, and if you have a prayer book, you open it up to the first prayer, which is Modeani, which means thank you, Lord. Thank you, King, for returning my body, my soul to my body, and your gracious mercy. And I give thanks to you, everlasting King, who has compassionately restored my soul within me. Great is your faithfulness. First thing we say in the morning when we get up and we open our eyes, we're thanking him for restoring our life for that day, which he does. Then, of course, there's other prayers, and I'm going to put the prayer book up. I've been getting emails and things from people that have been getting this prayer book, and they're really enjoying it. It's set up in a very logical way, how to do it, when to do it. On the video channel, I have the first video up of the first section of prayers, what we do in the morning when we get up. So you might want to take a look at that. I don't think it's very long. I don't remember it being very long. So you can start your way in the morning by reconnecting mentally and psychologically with God. Because sometimes we just jump out of, I'm late, man, I got a million things to do today. And you jump out of bed and you throw some water on your face and you grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever it is you drink in the morning, and your day starts, like without even taking a breath in between. And some days you wake up and it's a lazy day sometimes, and you just say, okay, well, I'm just going to relax and not get out of bed so quick, which actually is not a good thing health-wise, by the way, if you read about it. When you get up in the morning, you're supposed to get out of bed and get moving. In other words, do what you got to do in the morning. So the whole basis of everything that is being taught by everybody about Noahides, about all the rabbis that are teaching, is how to have your relationship with God and how to have your relationship with other human beings. And it doesn't make any difference who they are, Democrats, Republicans, what color they are. It doesn't make any difference. When you are standing and looking at another person, you're looking into the eyes of God, because we're all in his image. And when I look at you, I'm looking at God, because you're in his image. I'm in his image. Everyone is. Now, I'm not talking physical image. You understand that. I'm talking about what drives the body, the spiritual part of it. In B'nai Noach Connection with Israel, some guy put in a post last week, and I put up a second one this week, I think. It's about Hebrew words. And it's pretty cool. This week he talks about ruach, which means wind. It also means spirit. And he has a very nice, it's a little 3-4 minute video. And you ought to take a look at it because it's pretty cool how he explains these things and how the connection with God is always there. With spirit and with wind and with everything. And what we try to do, or what we try to instill in people, is the drive to each day tweak yourself, make yourself just a teeny bit better than you were yesterday. Each day, and slowly but surely, as we tweak ourselves forward, we get better and better. And this is what Hashem, this is what God wants from us. We're climbing that ladder up closer to Him as we tweak ourselves each day. Now, it can be possible. Do you have a day where you slip back a little bit? It's okay. Just know you slipped and whoops, wait a minute. I got to work a little more on myself on this thing, or a little more on myself on that thing. And you just start to climb up higher. The kindness is a big thing. We're witnessing things happening all over the world that we wouldn't be witnessing if people were just being kind to one another. We're witnessing crises. Crises? Is that what it is? Or crises? I don't know. I'm making a joke about it, but some of the stuff is pretty terrible. The hunger is one of them, and famine, and people not getting enough food to eat, or they have to scrounge in a garbage can to get food, or they don't have a place to live. They don't not have a place to live, not because God's punishing them and not because God's not supplying it, but because man isn't taking care of man. My goodness, there's enough money in this world and enough food in this world that everybody should have a roof over their heads and have food on the table and have a refrigerator with some food in it and have clothes on their back. We never think about what man does. And God gives us the right to decide. That's why we're looking at His image when we look at each other, because we can decide. Yeah, let's keep the price of wheat up. There were countries that used to grow wheat, and if the price got too low, they just start dumping it into the ocean, so it wasn't available for sale. So people just kept the price up. Cloudy Hat 17, good to see you. Look what's happening now with this coronavirus vaccine. I don't care what your opinion is on it, but what's happening is companies are essentially giving it to the people, I think, that are giving them the quickest and most amount of money. And some places, like I read a little thing from a lady from Italy. They're not going to have it till March or April. And they don't have places to do it. The country's not set up for taking care of things like that. And all kinds, of course, they had a pretty big morbidity rate. It's funny how they change words so they don't sound so bad. Death rate becomes morbidity rate. Reaction to the virus becomes health event. Oh, come on. Call it what it is. Anyway, this is all controlled by human beings. God doesn't go around and say, okay, these people over here are going to starve this year, and those people over there are going to have floods this year. He doesn't do that. Storms, yes, but floods, no. A lot of the floods come from the way we have managed our water systems in all different countries with dams here and there and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, what I'm saying is whenever you ask a question, you got to look at the deep side of the question. Cole Younger and Nancy Elscott on Facebook. How you guys doing? So you and I, when we look in the mirror, we have to be honest with ourselves and make sure that we're making the right choices for everybody, not just for ourselves, not being selfish about the decision we make. When it comes to other people, kindness, tzedakah. Tzedakah is number one in God's eyes. Now, tzedakah can be translated as charity, but it's actually kindness, because tzedakah isn't necessarily money. Tzedakah is your neighbor needs a ride to go to the grocery store in these times because public transportation isn't working as it should, maybe where you are. That's being kind. Cutting somebody's grass, taking out the trash for them, helping them clean their house. That's all tzedakah. That's all being kind to other people. Even giving somebody a smile is a way of is tzedakah. It's just treating other people properly. Money is also one. God tells us, and he's commanded us, that 10% of our income, well, 10% of the money that he gives us, that's his money, we're supposed to share it out with other people. How you decide to share it is up to you. The rules on it generally are, first you start with local family and town. Then if you're going to share it outside your town for a Jew, you share it to Israel in some way, shape, or form. You may want to give it someplace else, doesn't make any difference. I would investigate who you give it to, just so you know that the money's not just ending up in the wrong coffers. But it's okay to fund a soup kitchen in your town, and maybe fund we have things called the gemach, we call them. It's kind of like Goodwill, but not quite. People come and bring different things, like on a clothing gemach, people bring and drop off clothes, and it's sold back out to the people for like $2 and $3 a thing. It's not, they're not there to make money. They don't have a big salary. Most of the workers are volunteer workers. And if after you buy a certain amount there, they give you a bunch free too. I mean, and if you don't have money, if you go talk to the managers, they usually just let you take it anyway. But we have them for furniture. We have them for heaters in the wintertime. We have them for anything anybody needs. There's a place where they can get one on loan, or it be given to them at no charge, because there's families that need that help. I noticed some places in the world are starting to build homes, small homes for homeless people. Little small homes on the street and fields, using shipping containers to make, and there's plenty of rotting shipping containers rusting sitting around the USA. They could be turned into homes for people. This is all tzedakah. It's kindness. And this is what God wants from us, this kindness all the time. Is wanting to recognize Shabbat important? If it's important to you, then you do it. There isn't a commandment for the whole world to do it, but if it's important for you to do Shabbat in some way, shape, or form, you do it. But you learn the way to do it the Noahide way. In other words, when I say the Noahide way, the prayers that are for the Jews you can't use, but they're prayers, and some are in the Brit Olam prayer book, and there are other prayer books out there that have them that are specifically, some are edited, some are reworded, so that a Noahide has no fear that he's doing something wrong here or starting a new religion or something like that. You're doing what Hashem wants you to do. Imam Panduji Shalom. Sounds like an Indian name, I guess. From India. Yeah. This week's Torah, well, before I go to there, it's important that this sticks in the front of your mind. Treatment of people, treatment of God and treatment of people. There's just two too small. They're not small, but two things easy to remember. How am I going to treat God today, and how am I going to treat people today? How to treat God today, if you should do a little bit of prayer in the morning. You should pray every day. You should be in a habit of a habit of being connected with God and thinking about Him all the time. Can you say Shema? Absolutely, you can say Shema. The Shema Yisrael is a very important prayer for everybody in the world to say. It acknowledges the one God of Israel, and it goes, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God," and there's a pause or comma. The Lord is one. One, a complete. He's one. He's just, that's all of reality. All through the centuries, when non-Jewish people have gone to sages and asked, is it okay if they say the Shema? The answers they got was, yeah, it's good to say, but not just once a day. Say it once in the morning and once in the evening. Say it twice a day. You say it when you go to bed too, if you want. Some people have problems sleeping. What I do is I lay down and my mind's too active. I start focusing on those words. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And I just let it run over and over in my head. It's not as boring as counting sheep. And it focuses on God. Another little habit you can get into is when you lay down to go to sleep, you can start thinking about your day a little bit to see if you got it right during the day. Or maybe you just remember an incident where you growled at somebody where you shouldn't have, or you felt jealous about something when you shouldn't have, and things like that. People don't understand how simple it is to have a relationship with God. There's nothing complex and nothing about swinging censers with incense and nothing about, funny positions to put your body in and all that kind of stuff. The man that was called righteous in his generation, Noah, he just had a good relationship with God. He also had a good relationship with other people. He didn't put other people down and everything, which was an exception in his generations. And for that, he was called righteous in his generations. In other words, he was better than everybody else. Nobody else earned the right to be called that. Although, when we find out that other people, that Methuselah was close to God and Enoch was close to God, and it says that it doesn't say in the Bible anywhere that Enoch died. It just said he went to walk with God. And there was someone else that was said about too. Elijah went to walk with God, rode up in the chariot, right? Elijah. Doesn't say he died. In a fiery chariot he went up. So remember that the whole important thing that you guys are trying to do, and we are trying to do, the Jewish people, is work on our relationship with God on a daily basis and also our relationship with other people. And it's so important that we do that. And I'll tell you something, your relationship with other people, even if you do something as simple as smile at a stranger, and they might go smile at somebody else, it makes people feel good. When they see people smiling at them, it feels good. And they pass that feeling on. Or you do something else nice for the person, they pass it on. You are actually generating a light that's going from person to person to person to person. And on the other side, if you bark at somebody or you're gruff with somebody, usually the next person they come in contact with is going to get gruffed. The people are going to bark at them. Somebody did it to me, I'm going to do it to somebody. And then it gets passed forward like that. So sing it, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elokeinu, Adonai Echad. That's one of the tunes to it. If you go to Chabad website, they have all the prayers, everything. For Hebrew, they have all. You can actually listen to them and just repeat them and learn them that way. So there's all kinds of ways to do it. I don't have the best voice in the world, and as you can, those of you that know me, my voice is a little off today. I don't know why. Sounds to me a little scratchy, and I got a glass of water here with me just for that purpose. Okay, those of you in the Zoom room, if you put your hand up, if you have something you want to say, those of you on in YouTube, just type it in there. I'm watching that one. I can see that on the side of my screen here. And if you are in Facebook, then just type it in there. If you're on B'nai Noach Connection with Israel. And if you, anytime anybody watches this, when it's not during broadcast time, and they put a comment or a question, I answer them. So you might want to do that if you wish at some other time. And we ask you to share this program around and get other people excited about what you're excited about. Okay. Anybody have any questions right now? So you flip your mic there, Scotty. You wanted to?
Well, I was, but Thomas put his hand up as well.
Oh, did he? I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Okay, Thomas, go right ahead.
I was going to say, you talk about kindness, which is something I've experienced the last month and a half very much. I never thought, I always was kind when I could be through my life, but I never wanted to. I just thought I should. Now I want to. And some very good friends here in Tennessee even taught me that better. But the thing I still got a problem with is, don't get me wrong, I'm very thankful, but I don't know how to explain it just right. Accepting like help from others and stuff. Because I've always done everything on my own through my whole life. And I know it's a mitzvah for them and everything. And if I turn it down, then that messes it up for them. But I mean, it's still kind of hard yet. And I don't understand why. Is it just, I don't know, maybe pride? I don't know. But it's something I think more people got a problem with than just me. I mean, but it's a wonderful feeling. I've never had this much kindness ever happen to me all at once. I'm going to stop.
Okay. Actually, you brought up an excellent point, Thomas. We call this phenomenon bread of shame. And that's what it's called in the Torah. When people get something for nothing, there's a shamefulness about it. Wait a minute, even if they need it, even if God gives it to them, they feel a little ashamed that they're getting something for nothing. And so that's why God instituted all kinds of ways for us to get what we need from him and from other people. And one of the hardest things to do for anybody, and it has a little to do with ego. When I first started teaching and everything, years and years ago, when people would send money and stuff to help support my work, and one time somebody even bought us an automobile because we didn't have a car to use here in Israel. Another time they paid rent on an office for a while. It was hard for me to accept it in the beginning. It was even hard to ask for it. But then I understood, reading the Talmud, that that when I go to pray during the week, there's usually one or two three people outside when you walk in, and they're waiting for somebody to give them some coins in their hand. And some people look at it as an annoyance. Of course, you've learned that it's really not an annoyance. That person is actually giving you an opportunity to do a mitzvah, to do something good, to get points with God. God sent that person to stand in front of you to put his hand out so you could reach in your pocket. And you don't have to give him a lot of money, just give him something you've reached in your pocket, you've taken something what God put in your pocket in the first place, and you're passing it on to these people. When I go out of the house, and I don't know if I have it, I usually have it on my, oh, here it is. I got a little purse I keep change in. And I keep it full of change. And some places you walk and there's like 4 or 5 or 6 people out on the street, looking for, they're asking for some help, pay a bill or something like that. And I just reach in here, whatever I have in there, that's what I use. It doesn't make any difference. I usually, here in Israel, we have small coins, but like half a shekel pieces in 10, they're called agorot. 5 of those makes half a shekel. But I usually keep 1 shekel pieces is like $1. I mean, and pretty soon it may be worth the same as $1 the way the dollar's going right now. The dollar's becoming one of the weakest currencies in the world. What a shame. But if you give 1 or 2 to somebody, or we carry 5 shekel pieces and we have 10 shekel pieces, and depending, you just reach in and I pull out, and whatever the person gets, it gets from whatever comes out in my hand. I've learned that's the way I do it. And these people, and you got to first understand, try yourself to go up on the street and ask somebody for money. You're embarrassed. You're getting something for nothing. It's hard to do. And when I was young, I'll say, sometimes I would go down to DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C., and I need a little extra money, and I'd take my guitar and sit around and put a cup out or my guitar case out, and people just give money, they walk by. You've all seen it. But at least you're doing something. You don't feel as bad as you do as when you go up and ask somebody for money. People have to really do something special inside of themselves to get themselves to be able to do it. Now, of course, there are always the professional people that do it. They got a line down pat when they come, and the way they start talking to you, and then they give you all kinds of blessings if you give them something. But when you give something to somebody, one of the things, the way we used to do it is where we used to live over near Haifa, there was a corner market, and we used to go in there and give him money and tell him if somebody needs some food or something, give them, they don't have money or they don't have enough to pay their bill, do it. We also used to go in once a month to 2 or 3 markets and pay off a big bill that was in the market for somebody that they allow people to write down still how much they owe. Not everybody has charge cards or has credit or anything. So we pay that off. It helps the store owner. It helps the people. The point is, whoever is the recipient of that money, let's say we paid a bill off for a family, if we had enough money to do a whole, for a whole month, and the store owner comes in and he says, they say, how much do we owe you? And he looks at it and says, oh, you don't owe me anything. It's been paid for you. And the people, they thank him and everything else. And we gave the money on the condition that he didn't mention, it didn't say anything. Names, nothing. Why would I want to do that? Well, because I live in the same town with those people. When I'm walking down the street, I don't want to know who was the recipient of the money, because then I can think to myself, oh boy, look what I did. I put food on their table this week. That's a pride thing. And the people that received it don't look up and say, oh, that's going to give some, he said gave the money. And they walk on the other side of the street like they don't, they're ashamed that they had to be the recipient of the money. So when people do nice things for you, like you were talking about, Thomas, and especially if it gets you out of a bad situation or something, then you feel ashamed. And it's the shame of getting something for nothing. That's why God doesn't give us something for nothing. He creates us and puts us on this earth for a purpose, for him. Now, it may not be head of a worship group. It may not be a TV personality, or it may not be to be a rabbi. It may be your whole reason for creation was because when you get to be, let's say, 60 years old, somebody's going to come in your life that you're going to end up helping. And that was the only reason God created you, because he knew this other person was going to have this trouble. So he created you to take care of the trouble for that person. So when you walk away from somebody looking for help, and you turn your back on them, then you may be turning your back on the very reason you were created by God. You follow what I'm saying? You don't know that the person that walks up to you wasn't purposely put in your way by God, and that you weren't purposely born just to help this one family or this one person. Now, you got to use your common sense. I mean, somebody's out on the street drunk, you don't give them money for booze, and somebody's obviously a narcoman, drug addict. You don't give them money so you can go buy some more drugs. That's okay. You don't have to give to everybody. If you get a feeling that there's something a little goofy here, you don't have to give it. But you don't call everybody goofy and not give anything, if you know what I mean. When I give money to somebody, if they've got their hand out in front of me, I give it to them and they thank me for the money, I say, well, actually, I got to thank you. You allowed me to do a mitzvah today. So I give the people money and I thank them. Of course, Jewish people here in Israel know what I'm talking about. If you said it to some guy on the street, I don't know that he'd know what you're talking about, but you could probably find a way to word it that it would be okay. So, yeah, that it is. There are feelings of shame involved in that. Look, just imagine that God gave us a tree we could pluck bread off of, gave us everything ready to eat. We didn't have to work for it at all. What value do we put on it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We did nothing to get it. So, yes, Thomas, you're right. It teaches somebody to be a better man. And the people you're around, you'll see that there's a difference in everything, the way you look at things. Okay. Did I see another question here?
Well,
No.
I'm sitting here on a hot plate.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Sorry.
No, you're okay. Thomas just added, if I get too long-winded, Rabbi, you can tell me to hold back a little bit. But one thing on what Thomas said is, and this is not what I want to say, but I want to add to what Thomas said. I remember when I was the recipient, and from time to time I still am recipient of gifts. it does something to you to make you more aware of your surroundings. And you are able to, like Rabbi said, you are able to detect people in need without having to look at them. Does that make sense? Even without them having to hold something out, a cup or something, it makes you aware of your surroundings. And it brings up a giver inside of you. And I love what Rabbi says from time to time. He even said it tonight. It's not the amount, but it's the heart in the giving. It's
Right.
What your heart is in that giving. Now, having said that, I want to get back to what I was originally going to say, and you had brought this around 2 or 3 times. Now, I can't speak for people on the other side of the world. I can't speak for people in Florida. I can't speak for people in California or New York. I can speak for about people right here where I live. And most of you know that I do maintenance on low-income housing. The majority is low-income housing in apartment complexes. And it's funny, Rabbi, you was talking about how that we treat each other. Just because you look at somebody and think they're in need, it doesn't mean that they're not good people. Let's see, how can I say that? I'm gonna give you 2, for instance. Something had happened a year ago. We had 2 families lived across the hall, 6 feet from each other. Their entry doors were 6 feet from each other. Both seemingly, from looking outside to both apartments, both were very needy. But in one apartment, couple with 3 kids had no food. In the other apartment, couple, 3 kids, their cabinets was running over because they knew where to get free food. And they didn't even, when they left, when they moved out, their cabinets was completely full. And they had the knowledge of the people across the hall that didn't have any food, but they didn't share. So when you brought that up, talking about giving and being aware and how we treat each other, isn't that, how does that fall? Does that fall under robbery? Does that fall under, what does that fall under? And you see what I'm trying to lay out here? Or am I just, we have to teach those people to be giving. I guess I'm what am I trying to say, Rabbi?
Yeah, well, no, it isn't so harsh as to call it rabbi, to call it robbery. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead. Start all over with that.
Yeah, it's not. It isn't. You don't have to be so harsh as to call it robbery. Understand that sometimes it's not that you're sinning, but you're not getting a blessing. Now, I don't know if that's any better or worse, but God gives you the opportunity to do a blessing. If you don't do it, you're not sinning. You just missed a blessing God wanted to give you. I sure don't want to miss a blessing. That's give you an instance. I was sitting on my porch when we used to live down near Haifa. I'm sitting on the back porch, and I see this van pull up and on the sidewalk there, and he unloads these 3 or 4 huge bags of stuff. And I see this lady with a cane, little tiny lady with a cane and kind of hunched over. She gets out of the van and they drive off. The van drives off and left this lady sitting there. And she's loading these packages on her and putting them up. And she's really having a problem with it. They're really heavy. I'm sitting there having my cup of coffee. I said, well, I'm going to go down there and help this lady if she needs some help carrying those packages somewhere. Well, my back porch looked out on a boulevard. It was pretty wide, and it only had certain areas where you could cross the street, and there were some high-rise apartments on the other side. So I went down, asked her if she needed some help. And I said, yes, she could use some help. And so I started to pick up the bags, and I was astounded. These bags, look, I'm 6'4", and I'm a strong guy, but these bags were heavy for me. I mean, it was unbelievable. And these people just dropped her off there. I can only assume maybe it was family, but I'm not going to say yes 100%. And I said, okay, where do we need to go with this? And she says, follow me. And it took us 20 minutes or almost a half an hour to walk to her house and get it up the stairs into the apartment and into the kitchen. And I don't know how she would have done it. By the time I got to her house, I was just, whoa, oof. I was about to fall on the ground. It was so heavy. And so I put it down and I said, okay, there you go. And here in Israel, we address each other with kind of colloquialisms. Like had no idea who her name was. I was too old for her to be my mom. So I called her Aunt, So I said, okay, Auntie, here you go. See you later. And I started to turn towards the door. She says, no, wait. And she came over to me, and she reached up on her tippy toes and put her hand on my forehead, and she gave me a blessing. She gave me a blessing. And I thanked her and left. God wanted me to have that blessing. And if I'd sat in my chair and not done anything and just watched her try to get these packages home herself, I would have missed the blessing. Now, that's not the only time it's happened to me. And I'm going to tell you one other quick story. We have what are called shawarma stands. They're the pita bread with the lamb stuck down in there. You eat them standing up next to a counter bar. I was inside a mall, and I got one, and boy, I was so hungry. I'm getting ready to take a big bite out of this, and my mouth is just watering. And I felt this funny feeling, and I had to stop. I couldn't take a bite, so I looked around me, and behind me, why couldn't I take the bite? I didn't see anything, and I went to do it again, and I couldn't take the bite. So the guy that owns that particular kiosk, he's a friend of mine. So I put it back in the bag, and I set it on this. I said, here, just set that here a minute. Something's going on here. I don't know what. And so I turn around, and I just leaned back against the counter, and I started looking at people and looking at the whole scene that was there in the mall. And I saw against one of the pillars in the mall, there's a very old gentleman, and he was old. He's had skin like raisin, how that goes. And he had a deep tan, and he's wearing a kind of thready looking coat, sport jacket, and hat on his head. And I see him reach into his top pocket, pull out some coins and count them and put them back in his top pocket. Then I see him go into his shirt pocket, reach in there, pull out some coins, count them, and put them back in. Then he goes into each one of his pockets, and he counts some money and puts it back in. Then he takes out a piece of paper and looks at it, folds it up, and starts the process over again. He's counting his coins. So I just went over to him, and I figured this guy, it's either a bill or something. He needs some money. I don't know how much. And I'm not going to ask him if he needs money. That's one of the things you don't want to ask people. That's an embarrassing question. So I figured I walk up to him, and I folded up a 50 in my hand, and I just reached out my hand to shake hands with him, and shook hands with him. And as I pulled my hand back, I made sure the 50 stayed in his hand. The guy looked like he really needed some money. And we were talking to one another, and as I stood up, he saw the 50 and he started to cry. I said, what's the matter? And he pulled out this piece of paper, and it was a list of prescriptions that he needed to get. And here in Israel, you don't pay full price. There's a certain amount you have to pay, but you don't pay full price because we all belong to health maintenance organizations. And the amount, that 50 that I gave him, and the total on the bottom of the page was $48.60. And he grabbed my hand and pulled it back, and he thanked me, and then he gave me a blessing. You see, I was alert enough to see that God had put somebody in front of me. I had to look for him, but he put somebody in front of me to give me a blessing. So that's just two of the occasions I can tell you that were pretty specific, although it's happened to me other times. But not always does somebody bless you. Understand? You go and help somebody to do something. Who's giving you the blessing? Who put that person in front of you so you could help that person? God did. And you did it, so God sent this person specifically so you could draw down a blessing from heaven upon yourself. Think about the next time you see somebody trying to push a shopping cart across a Walmart shopping center, towing 3 kids behind him, trying to get it to the car, or carrying stuff in a house, or you can go over and you can help them in a nice way. People are a little skittish about people coming over to them, I know. But people get a little skittish about that. Watch the people at the grocery store and the checkout line in front of you. You can tell when they start putting stuff up. Well, no, I guess I don't need that this week. Oh, guess I don't need that. And they start putting it aside. You can see when they're doing it. And you might want to think about it. Pay for some of the stuff. I even had a checkout clerk tell me one time, man, this lady just wants to buy all these magazines at the thing. She doesn't need money. She's got money for food. And I said to the checkout lady, are you the judge all of a sudden? Whatever the lady wants, here, I'm paying for this part she couldn't pay for. And she thought I was an idiot because it included some magazines. You know, the magazines up on the front counter there. Don't take anybody's opinion for nothing. I'm trying to remember who told me. I think it was Daphne, but it might have been Shira. She's down in Abilene right now. They went through a carry-out window, you know, one of these drive-throughs. I forget what it was. It might have been, I don't know, one of the coffee places or something. And they placed an order through the speaker. When they get up to the counter and they go to pay, the lady says, well, the people in front of you paid for it. Now, the people in front of them, they didn't know anybody else was going to pay for it, but they were there. The people in front said, okay, I want to pay for the ones behind me. So she paid for the next person's order. You see how that works? It's passing, and each person that did it for somebody else made them feel good. Man, I just gave somebody something. That's fine. But more important is you've done something that draws down a blessing of God upon you. And you may need it that day. You don't know. I mean, I need them every day. But some people are more blessed than others. So you never know when this is going to happen, and you're going to get a blessing for doing something for somebody. But if you don't do it, it's not a sin. Understand that. There are certain things that, yes, it's sinful if you don't do them. But if you pass a guy driving down the road and he's got a flat tire and you don't stop to help him, or somebody's got a broken down car and you don't stop to help him, you didn't do something. It's not robbery. It's not anything like that. It's just simply you passed up a chance for God to give you a blessing. And I think that's pretty important. I think we all need some blessings from God. What do you say, Scotty? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Anybody have anything else they want to bring up or say or talk about? Israel's heading for elections. March 23rd, I think, is the date. Hopefully we'll get a government. This will be the 4th election in a year. Of course, we haven't caught up with Italy yet. I forget how many elections they've had since the end of World War II. It's some phenomenal amount a year of elections they have. Hopefully, we'll get it all straightened out this time when we go to the polls and get it done. And I hope things are going to be better in the USA for all of that. For those of you that want to follow the Torah portion, the Torah portion for the week this week is, hang on, I forgot to put it up in front of me. I think it's Shemot. Oh, we graduated from the book of Genesis to the book of Exodus. So we're starting Exodus this week. And, it talks about all things that happen with Moses and the children of Israel, they multiply in Egypt and remember, it started with 70 people. Remember how many people left there? 3 million were at Mount Sinai, and 80% of them didn't leave. So Pharaoh enslaves the Hebrews and tells the midwives, Shifra and Puah, to kill all male babies at birth. And when they don't comply, he commands his people to cast the Hebrew babies, into the Nile. And then a couple named Yocheved and Amram had a baby. They put him in a basket, and his sister put him out in the Nile River, and that guy was Moses. And talks about him growing up, and he realized his brethren were going through some hardships there. And how does he know it's his brethren? Well, because until he was weaned, his own mother took care of him. Yocheved took care of him. She was his wet nurse, and then he sent him on to live in the Pharaoh's house. And then, of course, he had to kill a guy in anger, that's a sin. Thomas says, I want some shawarma. Anyway, then he decided he had to leave. He was afraid that Pharaoh was going to do something to him. And that's when he went to Midian, and he married Jethro's daughter, right? Moses married Jethro's daughter. So that's the Torah portion this week. And, we read them once a week, year in, year out, year in, year out. And as we go through them, and what you'll find as you go through the learnings of the books, reading them once is not learning. Reading them more than once is you're starting to learn. The Hebrew scholars had a saying about you haven't learned the book until you read it 101 times. Now, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's to make a point. Every time you read a book, I don't care how many times you read it, every time you read a book, you learn something new from it. You see things you didn't see before. Because you weren't ready to see them, essentially. Sephora, right. That's right, John. I don't know why I was thinking Panina, but Sephora, yeah. My old head. Anyway, yeah. There's I don't know if you guys like movies like Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and stuff like that. But Star Wars is one of those movies, and there's a set of books out by Come on. Okay. It's called The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. And the Star Wars, I'll use that as an example. That movie, when it came out, technologically was so advanced. And you sit there and you watch the movie and you're so intent on watching the movie. And about the third time you watch the movie, all of a sudden you see where they're walking, there's all kinds of little bugs crawling around and bugs flying around and birds, but you never saw them I didn't see them the first couple of times because I was so focused on just the center part of the movie. And so as you see something over and over again, it's not just, okay, it's nice to see it again. You actually see new things in it. The same with reading. You actually see new things in it. And that's why there's so many different explanations about what's in the Torah portion, what is in the Torah, and what is in the prophets, and what is in the writings. So it's always good to get into a weekly reading if you can of the Torah portion. You go to the Chabad website, right up on the top menu there. You can see the current parsha, the current weekly portion. You can read it all at one time, or it's broken down. If you read one section a day, you've read the whole Torah portion for that week. And there's also commentary, and it's information for you. It gives you something to think about, how people thought and did things back in those days, and how God ran the world back then, as opposed to how he's running it today. A little bit different. But it lets us know how important each individual is in the history of the world. Each one of us, you too, everybody, and how important all people are if they work together. Okay, in YouTube, somebody named Nagendra said something in some language that I don't know what it is. Yeah, sorry about that. And so somebody else there did the same thing somewhere along the line. Anyway, be a complete human being. And you might not be a completely perfect human being, but be a complete human being. Reading Exodus is better than any movie you've seen. Yes, it's a pretty interesting thing, it is. About time Leviticus rolls around, that's when a lot of people like to bail out. There's so many rules and regulations and do's and don'ts and everything else. It's nice to read, but I have to study it. As the Jews study it, but everybody else can just read it and go right on through to the next one. But if you read also, we have these genealogies. And I used to say, what do I got to know all this stuff for? What do I got to go, again, here's the genealogy. Again, but as you read more and more in depth, you see where people connect to other parts of the Torah. Tegulu language. Oh, thank you. Oh, you know that language? I think that they do a program at Nohide World Center in Tegulu. I'm pretty sure. It looks like a very pretty language, the way it's written. Anyway, guys, anybody else have anything they want to say or bring up tonight or anything like that? Or any questions they want to ask? Look, those of you who are watching, get a hold of me at Pesach Sherbo or at Torah for the Nations or at B'nai Noach Connection with Israel if you have questions. I know it's awful hard to get answers from questions from some of the rabbis, or they have these standard ones that they just send out answers to questions. If you need to talk a little bit, let me know. If I can help you with something, some counseling or whatever you need, just get in contact with me. And when Shira gets back from her trip, I know she'll be back online again and she'll be able to help people also. And I guess that's about it until Sunday night. Sunday night, 10 o'clock. Join us now. Look, the Zoom room link is always the same. It never changes. We may be going through Noahide World Center Brit Olam YouTube, which is on Wednesday nights at 8, or Torah for the Nations YouTube, which is on Sunday nights at 10 o'clock at night. Thank you all for coming by. Appreciate it. And we're going to get ready here to cut off the live stream. And Angela, how you doing? We'll be back next week. And hopefully I'm trying to get this thing all worked out like Dan had it, where it was all real pretty and the little beginnings and endings and music in there and all that. I'll get to it eventually. Dan's pretty packed with his job. So bring questions. I know I used to do a two-hour program, but I decided in my own head, maybe we can cut it back a little shorter and then people watch it all the way through on YouTube instead of watching it halfway through when they go to look at it. Recommend us to people. If you've subscribed to our YouTube channel on Sunday nights, do it again on Wednesday nights. That's No Hide World channel. And make sure you're also subscribed to both channels, Torah for the Nations and Brit Olam No Hide World Center channel, to be kept up to date on everything. So I'm going to sign off. Good night, everybody. Thank you for being with us. And see you